Welcome to The Accident. This is a series of videos about motor vehicle accident survivors. Today's program is about surviving a motor vehicle accident for somebody who is older or an elderly person. And there are special challenges that people who are older face when they're involved in a motor vehicle accident. First of all, let's look at some of the things that are a part of aging, which certainly have an influence on motor vehicle accident survivors. When we look at aging, getting older includes some loss of physical and cognitive function for most people. In addition, when we look at getting older, memory tends to become less efficient as the number of cells or neurons in the brain decrease. So these are contributing factors. Along with that, bones tend to shrink in size and density, which weakens them and makes them more susceptible to fractures. Muscle mass tends to decrease with age, which leads to an increase in fat and a loss of muscle tone. And along with that, focusing on objects up close is more difficult as vision changes, and a person may become more sensitive to glare and trouble adapting to levels of light. With hearing, there may be difficulty also as people lose their ability to hear different sounds. Motor vehicle accidents can amplify the effects of normal aging. So in addition to the aging process, an MVA could certainly make life much more difficult. I have two guests with me today, and they are older people, and I'm not sure, I'll have to ask them what their age is. They may or may not want to give it. Marilyn and Richard were involved in a motor vehicle accident it was actually on Christmas Day in 2003. And they have a story to tell, a story about what happened to them, and it's a story that you may be able to relate to because it could happen to you, could happen to your parents, could happen to anyone. So let me start here by introducing Marilyn. Hi, how are you today?
Fine.
Okay, and Richard?
Pretty good.
Pretty good, okay. I guess what I'd like to start out with is if maybe, Marilyn, you could tell the people who are watching about the automobile accident and what happened. And Richard, you can join in too if she misses something.
Okay.
We left our house approximately 11 o'clock in the morning, heading from the Mid-Thumb area to Detroit area. And we probably didn't get 20 minutes to a half hour from home, and we were hit head-on by a man driving a large pickup. He lost control of his vehicle and hit us at a high rate of speed, head-on. And fortunately for us, we were driving a large Oldsmobile car. So, but it still, as Dick would say, it pushed the car back 70 or 80 feet. The airbags didn't go off because the truck went over the bumper. So, but we did have our seatbelts on, which probably saved our lives, but also did a lot of internal damage to our bodies, which we were not aware of that would even happen. We were taken to a hospital by ambulance. I wasn't even going to go, but I had a lump on my head, and then I felt nauseous, so I thought that's a sign of a concussion. But then we didn't seem to get real complete checkup at the emergency room, and we sat there all day until the state troopers came back and took us home.
Doesn't sound like a very good Christmas day.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
It was quite depressing, but I said to my husband, we aren't going to call anybody to come and get us because I don't want to ruin their day also. We've already, you know, we've already ruined my cousin's Christmas. They were all sad that we were in the accident, but we lived. We could have got killed.
Now, my understanding is you went to a small rural hospital and there wasn't much staff and they didn't really send you over to a trauma center.
No.
And a state trooper took you home.
Yes.
And then it was days later that you started to realize that there were some effects from the accident.
Yes.
And as you went through that discovery process, what else did you find out about what the accident did?
I don't even know how to answer it. We've just both had numerous surgeries. There's just the two of us, so we took turns. One would go in the hospital and take care of the other one, and back and forth. And we've had, between us, probably, 20 surgeries. I'm guessing. I know I've had 4 back surgeries. He's had a couple. We're not done yet. But it just kind of spiraled out of control.
Right, you're wearing splints,
Yeah.
and
I was the driver of the vehicle,
mhm.
and when you hang on as tight as you can, and I didn't realize, but I always put my thumbs under, and then I had this one replaced, this joint. This one probably needs to be, but I've been putting it off. You don't want to have surgery if you can avoid it. By doing that, I'll probably always have trouble with my hands to point to a degree. But he didn't have the steering wheel, so he bounced around more than I did.
Richard, can you remember the accident?
Oh, I remember the accident quite distinctly. I had seat belts on, and he was going at a high rate of speed, and he went right over the bumper and right over, took the hood and pushed it up against the windshield. And I flew up and hit the rear view mirror with my head and pushed it up into the roof of the car.
Mm-hmm.
And then I flew back to the back seat. I got about halfway over, and the seat belts caught me and brought me back into the front seat again.
Okay.
And I didn't think at the time that I had much damage. And
I didn't either.
They took us
I
to
agree.
a small hospital, a rural hospital out in the country, and I don't think they was able to handle severe accidents, because one of the things is we went to bigger hospitals years later and found out injuries.
Mm-hmm.
For example, my back, the vertebrae in my back was all separated, broke, and the doctor had to put a spring steel bar in my back and to take stainless steel screws and screw them into the
Mm-hmm.
spring steel bar so I could straighten up.
Yeah.
And I was left the accident with we carried, we're up in age, so we carried these four-wheel walkers.
Mm-hmm.
In case we have to use them. So when I went into the hospital, I used it, and when I went out, they set us in the waiting room, and we thought that was kind of different, for our injuries, and that they should at least, took us home.
Mm-hmm. And
And so we got a hold of the state trooper, and he come in, and he said, if they won't take you home, just give me a call, I'll come and get you.
yeah.
And
Now, for both of you, as you look back at it now, you would have probably approached things differently. You probably
altogether different. Yeah, first of all, I would have insisted on going to the hospital that was big enough, that has equipment.
a trauma center, someplace that
Yeah,
had
to take care of
trauma care.
take care of the x-rays like they should be taken care of,
Mm-hmm.
and taking care of the patients like they should be taken care of. Now,
Now, I want to interject something. Because the emergency room visit did not document all of your injuries, it created some problems for you.
Severe problems.
Can you explain
Extensive problems.
explain what some of those problems are?
Well, neither one of us knew that the seatbelts would affect the bladder, which it did. Of course, it affects the back would affect it too. But we both said to each other, gee, I got to go to the bathroom. And he said, I do too. We're only a half hour from home. I didn't realize till years later it was the seatbelts that probably bruised or damaged the internal organs. And when the insurance didn't want to pay for the urologist, and the urologist, they were angry because they said this was caused by the auto accident. But it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't documented in the first hospital. And neither was the back injuries. All they x-rayed was our neck in the emergency room of the first hospital in that small town.
Mm-hmm. So you've had difficulty, it sounds like, having your medical bills paid for because of that.
Oh yes, that was up to 280,000 at one point. I quit counting after that.
So your medical charges were into the hundreds of thousands of dollars,
Right.
not being paid. So what was happening? Were you paying for them?
No,
Okay.
we couldn't pay for them,
Mm-hmm.
and they would put on some things. They put on to Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
At the time of the accident, Dick was on Medicare. I wasn't, and I went to one physician, and he would not accept Medicare, and I asked him if they would. He said, "Oh, the auto insurance will not pay." And I said, "Well, then use the Medicare." And they said, "No, it's auto-related, so we can't put it on Medicare." But in this whole jumble of medical bills and medical treatment, they have gotten mixed up. And I don't know if they'll ever get straightened out. Some of it was charged to Medicare, some of it was charged to auto owners. One might refuse, the other one might refuse another time.
So the insurance companies are battling about who's
responsible.
Well, we're
And in the
suffering.
meantime, nobody's getting paid
Well,
Right.
We're suffering.
while you're suffering.
Yeah.
And you can't see the doctors you want to see because,
Right. We can't straighten things out.
yeah. So it's been, not only have you had then to deal with that, but you've had to deal with the financial pressures that come with it.
I think there should
Yes.
be a law
Yes.
passed that every severe accident, they should be shipped out by ambulance to a big hospital.
To a
that has-
trauma center.
That has, the trauma center has the equipment to take care of you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, going to doctor and doctor after doctor and making trips all crippled up. My legs, I had a four-walker and I'm dragging my legs behind.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just pitiful. And I thought day after day, I mean, why today in this country, the greatest country in the world, that a severe accident, they have to suffer this much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yet today, it isn't even, there's stuff out there standing and injuries. It was years later after another doctor found out that I had a whole broken back.
Mm-hmm.
The first doctor didn't find out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's drastic changes need to be made in the automobile accidents.
Okay.
And the auto company I asked them about mileage, and they said, just keep track of it. You can turn it in any time. And I waited 3 or 4 years, and I kept track of it. But then they wouldn't pay it because they said I didn't write it down properly. It should have been the exact mileage when I left my house. If I stopped anywhere between our house and the doctor, I had to put the mileage down. And it had to be a whole form, but they forgot that they never gave me a form.
So the reimbursement for your mileage to and from physicians hasn't been paid?
Never was paid.
Now, you said this morning you just got another bill that hasn't been paid. What is that about? Because the accident was back in 2003.
Right. The auto insurance company was supposed to pay for medication, and the pharmacist would call and get permission from them to fill each prescription, which he was very good about. He would not fill any prescription without getting the proper permission from the automobile company, and it got up to $10,000. And I thought it got paid a couple years ago, and yesterday I got a bill on it, and it's still not paid. Now it's under garnishment to us. So how many other bills was I told that got paid that didn't get paid? Getting this in the mail yesterday was really a depressing blow.
Yeah.
And we're depressed from. I try not to always be depressed, but sometimes it just gets to you, you know, it gets you down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a good system that we have. I just don't. You know, it's been so long. We should have been into retirement and doing some things that we enjoyed instead of going to doctors every day. In the days we didn't go to the doctors, we were making phone calls to get other appointments they were told to get. It's just very frustrating.
Now, you had told me that you had been involved with attorneys, lawyers. What was your experience with them? Were they helpful?
No, not at all. I haven't found that certain one yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still looking.
Mm-hmm.
No, they weren't helpful at all. When they said, sign here, we signed because they told us to sign. Then we found out we'd signed away everything for very little amount.
So you feel like the information they provided kind of misled you?
Yes.
Okay.
And they had met us. Somebody said, did they ever have you meet them in an empty building? And we thought about it. Yeah, they had. They had done that. Why I don't know. Now, whatever I say would be a guess.
Mm-hmm.
And but the day of the sign for, what is it, pain and suffering, I thought, well, we signed that part. Where's the next part? Well, there was no next part. That was it.
Mm-hmm. So you got a small compensation for your pain and suffering, but your medical bills are unpaid.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. And one other thing that I guess I wondered about is, did you complain to people about the legal problems or anything else that you were experiencing, and what were the results of that?
Complaint to, oh yeah, I tried. Whatever I could think of, I tried. Of course, our legislators, they can't get involved in auto accidents.
Mm.
I'm told. But I tried whatever I could think of. Nothing seemed to work.
You filed complaints with government agencies, and
Mm-hmm.
those people
Mm-hmm.
weren't
Yes.
helpful? Okay.
Went to different attorneys, and one of the beginning attorneys said, when I get done with this, nobody's going to ever unravel it. And apparently he was right. And then after him, nobody would take us, but there was a reason for it. There was something that he did or wrote in there that made them shy away from us.
Mm-hmm.
So,
is it fair to say that the attorney got what he wanted out of it, and you didn't really feel as if your concerns were taken care of?
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Very much so.
Okay. Now, what about case management? Did you get case management involved in your care?
Not in the beginning, and then kind of shortly after we did, they wouldn't pay her. They still haven't paid her. Like they haven't paid the urologist. They haven't paid, the medical drugs.
They had 3 different case managers, and they fired all 3.
Mm-hmm.
And they never got paid.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So you didn't have the benefit of a case manager helping you with your medical appointments?
Just about the time they started where they could help us, they fired them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The first one I liked very much, and she was very helpful. And then they just wouldn't pay her. So she said, I can't continue, because they won't pay.
Mm-hmm.
Then I heard the second one, she did help us some, but then I heard she got fired. And I think if you had a good case manager right from the beginning, we wouldn't have got into such a mess.
Mm-hmm.
It's a financial burden.
Now, you did get some neuropsychological testing done.
Yes.
This was after you had seen a physiatrist for your physiatric care, for rehab care.
Right.
And what came of that testing? What did you discover?
We both discovered that we had injuries to our brain.
Mm-hmm.
But I had said to the one person that did the testing, well, but I got hit on this side of my head, and the opposite side hurts. And that person said, but you don't know, your brain moves.
Mm-hmm.
If you're hit in an accident, you don't know which way or how your brain's moves inside of the skull, which I'd never even thought of. I thought, how can the opposite side hurt? Yeah, I learned a lot out of that testing. Just to come up with something right off. That was the one thing that stuck with me, because I would have never thought of that.
So once you learned that you had a traumatic brain injury, it helped you to understand why you were having some of the memory problems and other things?
Right. I had, is it aphasia, where you use the wrong word. Instead of carpeting, I might say lawn.
Mm-hmm.
And that accident happened in December, and by March and April were just horrendous. I couldn't remember the proper words. I knew what they were, but they came out, when I said them, they came out wrong. Mm-hmm. At all.
Now, Richard had some head injury too, and Richard, what do you think changed after the accident for you?
Well, the not giving me the attention that I needed, and I was, you know, I know I needed this attention and things that had to be done. For an example, it must have been, I don't know how many years later, I don't recall the years, but anyway, I went to see a doctor just east of Detroit, and he went in and put that steel bar in, and here I've been walking around with all my vertebrae all shuffled up.
Mm-hmm.
He's asking about your head injury, though.
And
Also,
head injuries, I still to this day, I can't remember a lot of things.
Okay.
Now, whether I'm subject to older age or I'm subject to the accident.
Well, both those things are probably happening, and you know the thing is, there is an aging process that you're both going through. But as I had pointed out earlier, an accident can amplify those things. It can move. For instance, a head injury will hasten dementia and hasten Alzheimer's kinds of symptoms along because of the kind of severity of it. And you know, that's not uncommon for people who've had traumatic brain injuries. The other thing is, as you've discovered, your body just doesn't bounce back from injuries like this very quickly, if at all.
you're right, but we have been quite fortunate, and I think it's because basically we're healthy people. Excuse me. Because when we had surgeries, the surgeon said you come back pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me.
So you were pretty healthy before the accident,
Right.
and that was to your advantage.
I now that I think about it, you don't think of things right away. You couldn't think of, it was too traumatic. And like now I find out I had a broken kneecap, but nobody told me that in the very beginning, and I probably always have a problem with it.
The two of you used to go dancing, used to enjoy life. Those things don't
Very
happen
much.
anymore.
Now
No.
they come to a screeching halt.
Our life became
And
doctors, going to doctors, and therapy, and water therapy, and physical therapy, and we even drove all the way to Bay City, Saginaw area for therapy. We tried anything just to get over this, and I don't think we're going to. I don't think we're going to get much better than we are now. I don't know. I hope we do, but our age is against us. I'm 72. You said you were going to ask my age, so I better tell you.
Yeah. And Richard, how old are you?
82.
82. So, you know, in some ways you're doing everything you can to stay healthy.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was born and I grew up on a farm, and I've done the heavy work and life and took care of the books all the time. And I was sharp memory and everything. I didn't know having a problem with anything. And all of a sudden, this thing is just like it went up against a wall.
Yeah. So, as a result of the accident, both of you have had your lives drastically changed, and it looks like even though you're diligent in doing everything you can't go back to what you had.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Now, when I think something that I can't think of, I'll keep working on it different ways, and finally I might get it.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of it will come together, one right after the other.
Yeah.
And then it'll just go away. Mind is not regular. It's functions on a certain type of basis.
Yeah.
And it's a funny thing to happen to you when you're so active and so, you know, having no problems with life, and then all of a sudden it's the brick wall.
Yeah. Well, that's a good explanation of things. I want to thank the viewers for watching this, and this is one in a series of videos about motor vehicle accident survivors. Hopefully you'll find that these are helpful to you, and that you'll also appreciate them for other people who may have an interest in this subject. Thank you again, and we'll look forward to providing more of these videos for you in the future.